Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurumedeva Sarvakarisha Sarvada Om Ganganapate Namaha. Welcome to Shri Swaminarayan Spirituality.com, Swaminarayanspirituality.com. This is Sachin Karnik, Jai Shri Swaminarayan. Today's exploration is on the very serious and devastating question of addiction, the devastating problem of addiction. The teachings of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, or who is of course known as Shri Sahajananda Swami Maharaj, he has given extraordinary solutions to this problem of addiction. So today's contemplative talk is an attempt to present objectively and as clearly as I can within a certain period of time the actual solution to the problem of addiction as per the teachings and the spiritual path elucidated and shown by Sahajananda Swami, or who is known as Shri Swaminarayan. So first of all, I want to welcome you all to this talk, whoever is listening now or in the future. This is an attempt on my part as a devotee, as a bhakta, as a seeker, to present ideas objectively through Swaminarayanspirituality.com and the related podcasts. Please note, as a disclaimer, there is no intention to criticize or promote any particular religious group or path as such. These are my own perspectives based on research and objective analysis, etc. Nonetheless, I offer my tremendous respects and love, and I request from my heart blessings from all the great sages in the past, present, and in the future, for blessings so that this talk can be performed with success, and this question of addiction can be answered through Vachanamrut, which is one of the main books, one of the main teachings, or the teachings of Sahajananda Swami are within that text. So to begin with, the problem of addiction has been there for thousands and thousands of years. There are millions of people that are addicted to substances, drugs of various types. There are people who are addicted to alcohol, which is also a substance. And then there are individuals who are addicted to what are called the behavioral addictions. So things like problem gambling, shopping addiction, porn addiction, internet addiction, and there's also others like food addiction. So the word addiction, if you were to translate this based on the teachings of Vachanamrut, what do we find? What is the best way to understand this? Well, we will look at just one Vachanamrut and maybe some others in connection, but the main one that we will look at is Garada Pratham, number 11. Pratham means the first part. Garada is this small village where this was spoken. And there are two questions in this Vachanamrut. So it's a small Vachanamrut, it's not very long, but it has definitely within it extraordinary truths that are worthy of tremendous contemplation. So first of all, the question of addiction, in a more general sense, we can ask that question in terms of the word vasna. In Gujarati language, the word vasna means intense desire, craving, wanting. We could put the word addiction in that also, because addiction is a more intense form of wanting and craving and desire. It is a tremendous force. There's a tremendous power in it to seek certain experiences that are provided by let's say cocaine or amphetamines or by ecstasy or whatever the substance may be, or that are provided by gambling activity with slots or table games or poker, whatever it may be. So these experiences that are provided are sought after. So the seeking of those experiences is what is really meant by Vasana. So in Vachanamrut Garuda Pratham number 11 Vachanamrut, what we find there are two questions. And the first question is asked by one of the very awakened and enlightened Paramahansas of Sajanand Swami. And that Paramahansa's name is Brahmanand Swami. So Brahmanand Swami asked a question to Maharaj. He asked this question, what is the form of Vasana? So what does that mean? He's asking how to understand Vasana. Now this is a profound question in many ways, but we're going to put this question in terms of the addiction problem specifically. So he's asking to Maharaj meaning Sajanand Swami Maharaj. In Gujarati, I'll speak it and then I'll translate it for you. He's spoken there saying, Brahmanand Swami asked the question. In Gujarati it is written, Pachi Brahmanand Swami puchhu je, hey Maharaj, Vasana nu shu roop che? What is the form of Vasana? How can we understand Vasana? How is one to recognize what is Vasana? So this is a very relevant question. If we were to ask the question, how does one recognize an addiction? How does one recognize that I, as an individual, have this problem of an addiction? What is the criteria for recognizing this, right? So the answer given in Vachanamrut is as follows. I'll speak it in Gujarati, then I will translate into English. The answer is as follows, that ત્યારે શ્રીજી મહારાજ બોલ્યા છે, પૂર્વે જે વિષય ભોગવ્યા હોય ને દીઠ્યા હોય ને સાંભળ્યા હોય, તેની જે અંતઃકરણની વિશે ઈચ્છા વર્તે તેને વાસના કહીએ. વળી જે વિષય ભોગવ્યામાં ન આવ્યા હોય, તેની જે અંતઃકરણની વિશે ઈચ્છા વર્તે તેને પણ વાસના કહીએ. Now we're going to look at this answer very carefully, word by word, step by step. The first part of this answer, he's saying here that whatever we have experienced before, the bhog means enjoyment of the past. In the past, at some point, certain enjoyments were there. So for example, if you were to take someone who smokes cigarettes currently, well, why are they smoking again and again? Because they started smoking at some point. Right? Let's say an individual took a cigarette or a cigar or something and smoked it at the age of 17 or 18. So that was the first experience. Now, first experience in this life. So that initial experience is recorded inside the brain, inside the mind, as per neuroscience and neuropsychology. That point is also mentioned in very simple language by Sajanand Swami, but very powerful. He's saying that those experiences are within the Antakarana. He says, Purve je vishay bhogvya hoy, ne ditha hoy ne samla, mean the things that have been experienced, through the eyes and nose and all the other senses. We can expand it that way. He says that they are within the antakarana, within the mind. They are within the internal mechanism that is the mind. So the word antakarana is a Sanskrit word that is also used in Gujarati and other languages in India, which represents the mechanism of the internal reality that we call the mind. So within that mind, within the mental reality, there is desire. So there's desire embedded within the mind. Meaning what? If someone has started to smoke, let's say, then they have the experience of that cigar, that cigarette, that alcohol, that sitting in front of a slot machine, whatever. It's an experience that individual has. It is that experience that is sought after. So when Maharaj is saying that the ichha means desire, antakaranya visha ichha varte, it means that within the mental processes, within the mind, the desire for that experience erupts again. It comes back again. It's not as if an individual, let's say, has had one drink of some particular vodka or alcohol and is permanently satisfied with it, never wants it again, has experienced it and has kind of said, wow, this was good, whatever it was, and says, I'm fully satisfied, I don't ever want it again. That does not happen, usually. In most cases, if not nearly all cases, when something is enjoyed, in fact, anything is enjoyed. Doesn't have to be about addiction, but it could be anything. But we're talking about addiction today. So we're going to talk about that specifically. When anything is enjoyed, when there is bhoga specifically, that's what Maharaj is using this word bhoga. When the word bhoga is used, that means enjoyment. So when that enjoyment is there, that is recorded, and it is inside the chitta, inside the antakaran, which is composed of 4 parts, the mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. So the chitta is the subconscious mind. It's our memory structure, basically. It's recorded there. The entire experience is present there. But now within that antakarana, as time goes on in life, when we have not had that experience for a while, our conscious mind, our psychological mind, our sense of me, the sense of me as not the Atma so much, but the Atma that is identified with the Antakarana and its desires, that sense of me that comes about. That sense of me says, I want this again. The demand for it again. So the way this is described is very beautiful here in Vachanamrutam. Maharaj is describing it where he says, in the past when Vishayas have been enjoyed, Purve je Vishay bhogvya hoye, ne dita hoye, ne samble hoye, teni je antakarana Vishay ichha varte tene vasna kahiye. Meaning what he is describing, how to detect vasna. That when that experience erupts, see the word here is varte. A very relevant word here. He says, the past experiences that have occurred, once they erupt again, once they come about again, where do they come about again? From inside they come about. Now they could be triggered from the outside. Yes. They can be triggered from external stimuli called cues. And they can also be triggered just from within one's own mind. So for example, let's just use a very simple example. Let's say someone has not had a strawberry shortcake for, let's say, 6 months, and they liked it a lot. Well, at some point, if they haven't had it for 6 months, 1 year, at some point, even if there's no external cue or stimuli or trigger, the mind may revert back to that at nighttime in the dream state and begin to enjoy that experience. It'll pull it out of memory, recreate it, and give that human being, that individual, the experience that he or she is looking for. So the mind can generate from its own memory structure experiences at nighttime that it is not able to get during the daytime. Is this true or not? Have you not experienced these things? I think if we examine our own experiences, we'll see that this is true. That if we have enjoyed something in the past, that we may have even decided we don't want anymore. So for example, people who are in recovery from a drug addiction problem or a gambling addiction problem, they may have given up using the drugs for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. They may have given up going to the casinos or playing lotteries and whatnot. But the desire for that has not dissipated. It has not been transformed completely from inside out. So desire is what we have within, and that desire has to be transformed, not simply controlled and not simply suppressed, although control is necessary. So before we get to what is that transformation, all that will come in the second question here. That question is asked by Muktanand Swami. But we want to understand the phenomena itself very clearly, that the desire erupts from within. And when it erupts from within, here's the other interesting part. It appears very new. It appears like, wow, this is new again. Even though it's not new. It's very old. It's been repeated many, many times. So the repetition is going to happen. It comes about. It opens up from the antakarana again. That is ichha. And Maharaj is using the word varte. Varte means that in the present moment, it establishes itself and keeps its life. It's alive in the present. Let's put it this way. The desire for a drug, for making a bet, for whatever, for drinking alcohol, that is present. That desire is awakened, and that desire is alive with a certain intensity in the present. That is what is meant by this word varte. I'm just elaborating on that word. You see this? It's a very, very relevant in terms of individuals who are either trying to prevent an addiction from happening in life, or individuals who don't have an addiction but are still indulging in these substances and potentially addictive behavior, or the third category, individuals who are already addicted and they are trying to recover and come out of the problem. This Vachanamrut is for all three. It is a prevention. It's going to teach prevention. It's going to teach how to deal with wants and desires for people who are not addicted but are still indulging in these activities. And then the third is people who are addicted, how to break through the addiction. All three are actually addressed in this one Vachanamrut. So when saints like Brahmanand Swami are asking this question, who are they asking for? It's not like they don't know the answer. They're asking for all the other people who have the same question, who don't either have the courage to ask the question, or because they are suffering from the problem, but they don't want anybody to know that they have the problem. So individuals who are afflicted by vasanas. Vasanas are these intense desires, and right now we're talking about addiction. The addiction problem is so severe, there's a lot of secrecy behind it. People who are secretly pursuing this, most of the people are doing it in secrecy. That's why they don't want to tell anybody about it. You see, so that is why Brahmanand Swami, at that time, this is, at that time of Maharaj, is asking this question not for himself. He's asking this question for so many hundreds and thousands of other people who these saints at that time came in contact with, who are suffering from these problems. And so lot of these questions asked by these paramahansas are for the benefit of so many others who have the similar questions, but they don't have the courage, or they don't want to ask it in the open forum. That is the reason behind that. But anyway, this is a very relevant question. The question is for all of us who have, at some level within our being, at some level within our reality, the difficulty of vasana, that vasanas are present. What do we do with them? So, the first step, see the approach of Maharaj. He's asked a question. And just as any great Sadguru would do, because he's in the form of a Sadguru, those who are devotees of Swaminarayan consider him as God, but not everybody is a devotee of Swaminarayan. So those who are not devotees of Swaminarayan can consider him as a guru, as a Sadguru, as an enlightened being, whatever. And even if you don't consider that way, someone who has mastered Ashtanga Yoga, someone who has realized the nature of the Antakarana. Even that is shown by Maharaj himself. He says, I can see the Antakarana clearly, right? So even a Siddha is able to do that. So Siddha is a individual who has reached mastery of one's mind. Whatever the opinion may be about who is Sajanand Swami, we won't go into that here. But what he's teaching is relevant for everybody. And this is why the spirituality of Sri Swaminarayan is relevant for all. Well, whether they're devotees or not of Swaminarayan, whether they are part of the Gujarati community or not. It's not about any of those divisions. We have to go beyond all that to touch the spirituality that is universal in nature. So the problem of vasana is universal. It's for everybody. Anybody who has a human body has this difficulty in one sense or other, or the reality of it. So look at how Maharaj has answered this question. He's answered it sequentially, carefully, and directly. So he's describing initially how to detect vasana. How can a person go beyond it until one can detect it, can see it, to observe it, to be aware of it, to know what it is. So antakarana vishay ichha varte in Gujarati language means that within one's experience, desire is there. All right. Desires do come about, right? Now, those desires, he's also describing where do they come from? They come from past experiences. All right, but it doesn't stop there. He is also saying in the next line here, he says, Ane vadi je vishaya bhogvya ma na avya hoy. Teni je antakaranya vishaya ichha varte tene pan vasna kahiye. What does that mean? That the things that we have not experienced yet, and you want to experience them, and because you've seen other people experience them, you've seen other people enjoy them. He said, no, I want to experience that also. I want to have a multi-million-dollar jet. Wow, that would be so cool. We usually see that pictures on TV of these wealthy people going in these private planes, for example. So, wow, that would be so awesome. If I was a multi-millionaire, if I had $100 million, I could afford a $10 million jet and have my own jet. Wow, 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 wow. Right? This is the experience of most people watching those things. I think the only time most people even see those jets are on TV. Even at the airports, you don't really see them there in a different section and all that. So it's not that even easy to see even those private jets that easily. We see there are other planes and all that. You can see them at the airports. But the private jets are in a different section. And how many of us have even been in a private jet? And if we have been in somebody's private jet, we think we're something very special. Wow, this is something great, right? But and then if we were in somebody's private jet, then we would think, I would like to have that. See, that's what Maharaj is talking about, things that we have not experienced. Even if you have sat in somebody else's private jet, that cost $10 million, some extraordinary private jet, then the thought comes naturally, it would be so nice if I owned this jet, if I had such a jet. Then that becomes an ichha, that becomes a desire. And this is just one example, right? There are countless such examples, from the very ordinary objects in the world to these more highly expensive and objects that provide higher stimulation. So in the question of addiction, the same thing is present there. You've got now designer drugs. These drugs provide a tremendous amount of stimulation, and they are very potent. Their potency is more and more. It's been developed that way. If you go to a casino these days, now they just keep expanding the number of machines and games, and because of tolerance effect. People get tired of the same thing, so they keep changing it and keep enhancing it to provide a more stimulative experience, more powerful experience, and so that stimulates the brain even more. That's what Maharaj is saying there. Maharaj is saying that the things that you have not experienced, you have seen that others are experiencing them, or you've seen them in nature or in the material world, you've seen them. He said, I want to experience that. The demand to experience greater and greater phenomena in the material world. That is the second part of this answer to the question of Brahmanand Swami. He's saying that the ichha, that the desire to experience all of those objects, the vishayas. The vishayas are the five, shabda, sparsha, rupa, ras, gandh. That is through the five senses we get experience of the outside world. So from that we get the experiences of the outside world, and we want to experience even more and more and different kinds of things that just keeps going on. And when that kind of drive and desire has become predominant in the mind, then that is called also vasna. That is the second way to detect what is vasna. So what we have two definitions of vasna. We have one definition based on past experiences, and the second definition based on what we have not experienced yet. So we have desire for things that we have not experienced, and to be aware of that. That's what Maharaj is saying. So he answered the question directly. The question was asked clearly. It was answered very, very clearly. But now, what is the next step for us? Anybody who is suffering from an addiction problem of any kind, first of all, this problem is not something that one can simply just dissolve like that. It doesn't just go away. Even if you are abstinent from it for certain periods of time, the desires come about, as Maharaj just taught us. So the second question here is about the solution to this problem. So Muktanand Swami, one of the great Paramahansas of Maharaj, who was older than Maharaj, he asked this question, logical question. He says here in Gujarati, he says, "Tare Muktanand Swami puchu je, hey Maharaj, Bhagwan no ekantik bhakta kene kahiye." So he's asking the logical question, that Maharaj, you're talking about Vasana here, but hold on. I'm going to ask you another question about the dissolving of Vasana, but he's putting it in a different way. He says, who is an Ekantik Bhakta? So it's a logical question, because Muktanand Swami knows that if you have Ekantik Bhakti, you don't have Vasana. That's the answer. Actually, the answer is right in that question itself. But he wants to hear the answer from the words, from the mouth of Maharaj. Why is that? Because for the benefit of others. So see the way Maharaj answers this question. He answers this question in terms of the first question. So Maharaj answers here. He says here, ત્યારે શ્રીજી મહારાજ બોલે છે, જેને ભગવાન વિના બીજી કોઈ વાસના ન હોય અને પોતાને બ્રહ્મરૂપ માનીને ભગવાનની ભક્તિ કરતો હોય તે એકાંતિક ભક્ત કહેવાય. Iti Vachanamrut. So what does it mean? What is the translation here? So Shriji Maharaj answered the question of Muktanand Swami. He says that Ekantik Bhakta means what? One who is single-pointed in devotion towards Bhagwan. Right? So that's what the answer is. He says the devotee, the Bhakta who has no other desire other than to realize God, to please God, to connect with God. Jene Bhagwan vina biji koi vasna na hoy. That Maharaj said you can keep one vasna, one desire. And it can be very high also. It can be pretty intense, quite intense. And that's no problem. And that is the desire to realize God. Desire to realize the truth, Satchidananda, the desire to realize the Atma, Paramatma, everything comes in that. All spiritual truth, realization of all spiritual truth is what Maharaj is talking about. But that is only possible when there is no other desire than this. So now in this answer, the solution to the addiction problem is right in front of us. That bring yourself to a realization that there is only one ultimate desire to keep, and that is to realize the soul, the Atma and the Paramatma, to please God, to connect with God, because everything else in this world is temporary. It is causing problems if you go further in pursuing it, and even the highest category, highest level of sense enjoyment, you will get saturated, as in the question of addiction, tolerance effect. Tolerance effect is called in Gujarati Santrupta Bindu. That is a satisfaction that comes and then you get saturated. You don't want any more, or you need something much more and more stimulation to get to that point. And the brain is highly conditioned that way. This is called tolerance effect. Tolerance is a serious problem, psychologically, neurologically, for those who are addicted. So that tolerance effect is actually something that Maharaj is talking about, not directly, but is talking about it. If you contemplate on this answer, you'll find the tolerance effect here. The tolerance effect is found where? That when vasanas increase, what happens? You see, once they increase, one gets lost inside the world of Prakriti, and one is trapped, one is bound by them. One is a slave to those vasanas. You see, so that's why Maharaj is saying, Jene Bhagwan vina biji koi vasana na hoy. That means other than Paramatma, other than God, other than that seeking of that ultimate truth, other than that any other vasana will divert an individual. That's a broad statement. We're talking about addiction today. So alcohol, tobacco, other drugs, gambling, pornography, and all the other stuff that is there, it has so much power over the human mind. But what is more powerful than that is the desire to connect with God. So to connect with one monotheistic God, that is in some sense it is a little bit of a dualism there, but it's good because that allows the mind and its powers and the antakarana and the body and everything to align in what is called Ishta Bhakti, Ishta Devata ki Bhakti. It is the devotion towards the chosen deity or God in that particular form that one is attached to. So to develop from the antakarana, to grow vasana towards God. So what does that do? That eliminates all the other desires. All the other desires automatically disappear. The problem of addiction is not to be controlled. It gets dissolved naturally when one naturally is absorbed in connecting with Bhagwan. Bhagwan vina biji koi vasna, meaning Bhagwan ni vasna. Bhagwan ni vasna means the vasna towards God. That I want to know more about God. I want to study the scriptures. I want to do more prayer, more meditation, more mantra sadhana, more shastra patha. Anything God-related activity. When we keep doing that again and again, and then find enjoyment from that. That's the key. But what is that? What is the enjoyment that comes from that? It is a type of enjoyment that can obliterate all the other vasanas. But remember, we don't want to be stuck in the oscillation problem. The oscillation problem is there for many individuals who are trying to develop this greater desire for God. But that's the whole point. You can try to develop it, but it's not a question of simply developing it. It's a question of being in that connection indefinitely. It's like an individual who has that, $1 billion. Well, they never forget that they're a billionaire, so they are constantly energized by the fact that they have $1 billion. You see, they may do anything else that anybody else does, but their internal energy and mental framework is energized by what they have. Similarly, when one recognizes through glory called Mahima, Prapti no Mahima, what have I obtained with the form of God that has come to me? When one has that glory of God, the Ishta Bhakti, when that glory, Mahima develops, then one doesn't forget that. And then one begins to experience the rasa. Rasa is the enjoyment of devotion. That is called Ekantik Bhakta, the one who is constantly enjoying devotion. And in that devotion is serving the world, working with the world, doing everything, but is never trapped in the world by pursuing the world as a means to realize, as a way to open the door into the higher consciousness. Just running after the Panch Vishayas is not going to open the doorway into the Atma and Paramatma. It will not do that. It will keep one bound further. That realization comes, so the person is a mumukshu, and then from that, mumukshu means one who seeks liberation, and from that state of being, prevents further damage from happening. What do vasanas do? What does the problem of addiction do for an individual? It damages the individual. It damages money, damages the brain, damages the mind, damages the body, damages relationships. It creates legal problems. It creates problem upon problem upon problem. And individuals who are wanting those experiences produced by these substances or the slot machines or whatever it might be, when they're wanting those experiences, they're wanting them relentlessly. The relentless pursuit of that is the running after that experience at all costs, that you want that further. That experience is so compelling, so enticing, so unique in itself. Yes, and it is unique. It is part of the life of the mind through the experiences provided by Prakriti. Prakriti is the nature. There's no question. If somebody puts a $5 bill in the slot machine and wins $15,000 jackpot, that's an experience. Like, wow, right? Now, is that experience the same as taking a rosary bead, a mala, and doing a mantra like Swaminarayan, Swaminarayan, Swaminarayan mantra, or Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna, taking the name of God in any which way, or name of Guru or God in any which way? Is that the same experience? Of course it's not the same experience. Obviously not. But the joy that comes from devotional practice is of a totally different quality than these peak experiences provided by the material world. Does the material world provide peak and highly stimulative experience? Sure. Even in the sexual response cycle, an orgasm is what? It's called, in the satsang language, we say kam vasna, stri sambandhi bhog. This is what Maharaj himself has used this language, right? But in neuropsychology, we would say the sexual response cycle. You can look it up on Google. Just type in sexual response cycle. You'll find the whole cycle and many diagrams and everything. You can find it very, very easily. So the experience of an orgasm is what? It's a peak experience. But is it continuous? No. It is not. It is bhog. Maharaj is talking about that. He's not using the English word orgasm. He's using the word bhog. That's all. You see? So now if somebody puts a $5 bill in the slot machine and wins $15,000, what is that? That is bhog. Somebody goes to a restaurant and orders a dish of whatever they like, that very expensive restaurant, and they're really hungry and they really are looking forward to that particular kind of meal with a glass of wine and some particular appetizer, and then the main course, and they're with their friends and they're whatever. So they're celebrating something, whatever. Then what happens? There's an experience there that is called bhoga. Right? So bhog is of there in multitude of ways. Somebody buys a brand new car, that is bhog. So bhog is enjoyment. So wow, this is nice. I like this. So bhog is enjoyment. So now what Maharaj is saying is that there is bhog also, but bhog of the devotion, bhog of the murti. Murti meaning what? The devotional practice that comes, the devotion towards God, gives the experience of ananda. Not the experience, but the state of ananda. Experience is still short-lived. It is like that. So it is called Brahmarasana Bhogi. In one of the Muktanand Swami himself has written this statement. Anubhavi Anandama Brahmarasana Bhogi. Brahmaras is what one begins to experience from the heart. It is a clarity. There's jnana in there. There's vairagya in there. There is the sweetness of devotion in there. There is Guru Seva. There's also the great attachment towards the great sages, their state of realization, the desire to be with devotees and all that. That kind of environment one seeks. So that is called Brahmaras. Brahmaras comes about this way. And that's what Maharaj is saying as a solution. So as far as the addiction problem goes, the addiction problem is completely destroyed when one brings all of one's desires completely in sync, and they come into sync when you just begin to attach into spirituality, into God, into Bhagwan. Bhagwan meaning God, that you continue to sink in that again and again, then vairagya comes. Vairagya automatically comes from the addiction problem. You try to solve the addiction problem, you'll not be able to solve it. You cannot solve that problem without getting attached to God as per teachings of Maharaj. You can try, but all that will happen, you'll keep spinning in the problem. It's like a quicksand. You cannot get out of that quicksand. The more you try to analyze it, the more you'll sink in that thing. It's good to understand it, it's okay. But the actual solution to the problem is to completely, once and for all, attach the antakaran at the feet of God. Whether we do it now, whether we do it tomorrow, whether we do it 100 years from now or 100 lifetimes from now, there is no other way to come out of the vasana. There's no other way to come out of the innumerable entanglements in the material world, including addiction. And this is the perspective of Swaminarayan. If you disagree with it, it's between you and Swaminarayan. It's between you and the scriptures. Then we can go into that. And you're welcome to text me, email me, and I would love to have a conversation with you about this. So don't hesitate. You don't have to just accept things blindly. And I would never encourage anybody to do that. You have to experiment, have to see the truth of it. Even in the addictions world, there's a 12-step recovery. They talk about having conscious contact with the higher power or with God. So that's step number 11 out of the 12 steps. So everyone talks about this because the solution to the problem of addiction is to take all of that energy that is being funneled inside the antakarana and connect it at the feet of God. Give it back to God. From the point of view of Vachanamrut, all that energy has only one source. That is the mind of God, the divine mind. This idea is there in Christianity also, in many other traditions, that God's mind, God also has a mind, but not like our mind. It's something which we don't understand, we cannot imagine. So there, God is a thought, and from that all the creation has come. This is how it is described in Vachanamrut also, that Bhagwan in Akshardham, the Supreme Lord who is beyond the Akshara Brahma, has a sankalpa, has a thought to activate Mahamaya. But these are more complicated and tricky subjects, but from that the whole creation comes about. The point is, whatever energy we have, psychologically, materially, financially, whatever is available in this material world, that power has only one source. And that is the Supreme Lord only. So that power is within us. If we take that same power and completely absorb it and attach it at the feet of Paramatma with love and affection and devotion, what do we have? We have the solution to the problem of addiction. That the addictive impulses will subside. Now, they can be rooted out completely when the realization of God occurs. In the Bhagavad Gita, this is written as param drushtva nivartate. That means that when the realization of the soul and Paramatma occurs, then the seed of Vasana is burnt. It's completely burnt away. And that is also described here in the second part of the second answer, where Maharaj is saying, Ane potane brahmarup manine bhagwan ni bhakti karto hoy. The Ekantik Bhakta Ke Maharaj is saying here that one considers oneself as brahmarup. Brahmarup means what? I don't have any vasana, meaning the attachment towards gurus who are Brahma Swarup gurus, and say that state is me, that state is me, that state is me. So that Maharaj has mentioned that on multiple occasions in multiple places. And I won't go into all the references right now, we're running out of time here. But what I would say is that the attachment to the state of the great sages, that is my state, that is my state. So that is how one believes that one is the Brahman, by attaching to the great sages. And then from that attachment to their state of realization, if one considers oneself as the Brahman, then where's the issue of Vasana? One considers oneself as the Atma. Atma doesn't have any Vasana. The soul doesn't have any Vasana. So there's no identification with Vasana. So the de-identification process is also mentioned here. Brahmarup manine. Manine, why is he saying that? To identify, to believe strongly that I am the Brahman. It's a tremendous belief. Manyata means belief. But from that belief comes a much greater conviction that this is who I really am. And in that state of belief, this is belief now, devotional practices are performed. Bhagwan ni bhakti karto hoy. That he is performing activity that is bhakti. Such an individual who has a firm belief that one is the Brahman and is firmly attached to God in performing bhakti, that is an ekantik bhakta. So that is a definition of an ekantik bhakta, who is still doing sadhana. So the definition, so here at this stage, this is still the stage of a sadhaka. That the sadhaka is a spiritual aspirant who is trying to awaken and realize, but this is the path. Maharaj is showing a very clear path of two things here. That three things. He says, become attached to God whole and soul. Point number one. Second thing is, consider yourself as a Brahman. You are Brahma Rupa. You're not the physical body, subtle body, causal body. You're not any vasana, any entanglement, all the structure of the memories. None of that is actually who you are. So one comes to that meditatively to realize that. And then the third point is that the continuous activity that is performed while we're awake and sleeping, that activity is God-centered, Bhagwan-related, God-centered. That is a devotion towards God. So that devotion towards God, Bhagwan ni bhakti karto hoy. Karto hoy means that through the mind, through the bodies, through the senses, bhakti is constantly performed. Now, does that mean that one doesn't go to work or one doesn't spend time with family and all that? No. One does all of that also. But that is done in the light of devotion, in the light of service, in the light of goodness. It is done without attachment also. It is done as needed to the extent that it is needed. And then one reverts back into bhakti. That is why in Shikshapatri, Maharaj said, Virtaha kalena netavyo bhaktim bhagavato vina. When free time is there, the devotee jumps right back into devotion. Doesn't jump into the material world and starts rolling around in the five sense objects. You know, like an animal, like a pig that rolls around in the mud, right? Similarly, an individual who's lost in the forest of the samsara is rolling around in the samsara, like an animal who rolls around in the mud and just is running after the pleasures of the flesh, as per the Bible would say that also. You see, so that is the animal in us. We have to go beyond that animal into the devotional state, into that state of bhakti. So this is the whole point. So what is the solution to the addiction problem? Point number one, consider, let's go through this carefully. Recognize the nature of the desires itself, vasanas. That was the first question. The second point is, become completely absorbed in God. Second point. Third point is that consider yourself as Brahmarupa. You are the Brahman. Now to do that, Maharaj has said that find great sages who are enlightened, become attached to their state, not to them individually. You may love and respect them and all that, but the attachment is to God, not to the sages in terms of their physical forms. You know, otherwise one will start worshipping the sages. So if you start worshipping the sages, then worshipping God can get deflected. That is one of the key points in Vachanamrut. Maharaj said that it is a sadhan. The gurus are a means to an end. They are not the end in themselves. The end is God Himself. Satpurush ne vishay drad priti age Paramatma darshan nu sadhan. Vartal number 11 Vachanamrut. So within the gurus, God exists. Yes, we can see God within the gurus, within the great sages, and within everybody. That is our goal. But to get lost in personality worship is not the teaching of Sriji Maharaj, as per my perspective at least. Right? So personality worship, it's not that, it's tattva. Maharaj himself has said tattvati olakha. To understand by tattva, to recognize by tattva means by the realization itself. So anyway, this whole point about the Brahman, that I am the Brahman, to believe that firmly, that belief is called Brahmanishta. Nishta means tremendous faith that this is who I am, but I am not the physical, subtle, and causal body. This is the whole point. That I am beyond all that. I am beyond all the 14 indriyas, the 10, the Panch Gyanendriya, Panch Karmendriya, and the 4 Antakarana. I am beyond that. I am totally different from that. Even though the activity is going on, just as a Satpurush performs activity but stays above it, similarly, that is who I am. You know, so Chaud Indriyani Kriya Potani Vishay Nathi Manta, Vartal 11, that the activity of the body continues, but that's not me. The activity, even though that is going on, that's not who I am. I am totally different from that. I am the Brahman. You know, so that belief that I am the Brahman, it starts with a belief, then that belief gets solidified further into a state that is called Atmasatta Rup. Rupe Vartya. That means one has the realization that the Atma is different from all the three bodies. And the Atman and the Brahman are one. And in that state, then devotion is performed. So the devotion Maharaj is talking about is this state where one is trying to come out of the vasanas and all that. So Ekantik Bhakta is one who has recognized what is the nature of vasanas, is completely attached to God, has no other vasana except God, believes strongly that one is the Brahman, and the third point is continuously performing bhakti. Bhakti kartore. Karto, Maharaj is using the word karto. Karto means what? He's performing the activity. It's not simply that I believe that I'm the Brahman and that's it, then there's nothing. Then one will just usually revert back into the worldly experience and be lost in that only. That's all. That's the only thing that would happen. But when one is awakened into devotion, the awakening of devotion from within is very, very beautiful. It's very profound and it's fantastic. Because what does that provide? It provides the wisdom, the experience. It also provides this satisfaction of the vasanas. It subsides all the vasanas. That's why there's a word that is used in Vachanamrut called Puranakam Bhav. Puranakam Bhav means that I am totally satisfied. One gets satisfied by being at the feet of God, by being absorbed in devotion. And one continues to be in that because there is realization that the worldly experience is not worth running after, and there is also realization that real joy, ananda, is in the devotional practice and attaching to God. God is the source of joy. Why not go to the source, and why get stuck with all these superficial ripples which have pain inside of them also, right? So that is the difference there. So that is the solution to the addictions problem. Now, Sachin spoke this. This is, anybody can talk about it. It's all okay. Ultimately, it's doing it and realizing it and being in it. It's experimental. It is experiential. This is a spiritual experiment. The Vachanamrut is a psycho-spiritual and sociological experiment. That's what it is. It's not simply some tradition and simply some ideas that are presented so that individuals can just believe them and then be stuck in some tradition. No, it's not like that. It's not about any particular tradition. It is truth that is universally and completely applicable in every situation, despite traditions. So these are some thoughts today. We'll talk more about this from other points of view, but within this 52-minute recording, we are able to see as clearly, I think, I'm hoping clearly, at least in summary form, we can see what the solution to the addiction problem actually is. It's an individual. The solution is there. It's up to each individual to drink this medicine. That's all it is. It's a medicine. Vachanamrut is a medicine. This Garada Pratham 11 is a medicine for the addiction problem. And if we take it, we will see what it is and what's involved in it. We will know. All right, so I offer my prayers to all the great sages throughout the world, to all of you, and offers prayers to all the deities, all the avatars, and to Sajanand Swami Maharaj, Bhagwan Sri Swaminarayan, for blessings so that this all be clear and that people can not be stuck inside the problem of vasana and not damage their lives or anybody else's lives. Thank you very much.